So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Scandinavia and like Scandinavian / Viking history, and then I'm going to be talking about Christianity, but not all of Christianity because that would take way too much time. Basically, just how Scandinavia existed, Christianity existed. They didn't really fight. They were just Christianity was just like, hey, this is an idea, and then Scandinavia was like, no, thank you. And then a couple years, like 100 years later, they were like, actually, I would like that idea. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about that. I'm filming this intro it is currently 4:30 in the morning. So I will be making a jump cut to later in the day when I can actually talk about what's going on when my family's not sleeping. But yeah, Viking history is really, really vague. I don't know why I moved forward. Viking history is super, super vague. And Christianity is also a super, super big topic. So basically, to wrap up how it all fits into Beowulf, the topic, the main, so it's like it's a Venn diagram. There's Scandinavia, Christianity, and then in the very small little section, there's Beowulf, and I'm going to be talking about that small little section. The contents of today's video will include a little bit about Viking culture and Scandinavian culture, a little bit how Christianity influenced and affected that Viking culture, and what it was like when things were being mixed and thrown around in the jumble of things, and then how that all affected Beowulf. So, jump cut, see you in like 3 hours. It'll be like, or not 3 hours, it'll be like 12. It's me at 4:40 a.m. now. I know I said I was going to do a jump cut, but I figured I needed to add in a little, like a little paraphrase, like a star here. Quotation. If this was an essay, this would be the moment where I'd be in between parentheses. I have a really bad stutter. I try not, like, obviously if you have a stutter, you try not to have a stutter, but I am actively trying to ignore my stutter. So if I stutter a lot and like I have pauses when I'm speaking, I promise I'm not trying, like it's not something that I'm doing to be like, maybe I can add extra time on the video or she'll feel bad. No, it's just a part of my natural, like I just speak like that. I also gesturate a lot. I'm Italian, and so I gestured a lot. Also, I don't look at the camera. That's a problem. I feel like I'm literally just like, here's everything why you should dock me points on this project, but a lot of people tell me that it's really annoying and hard to focus on me when, like, people that I meet for the first time, when I talk to them later in life, they're like, it was so hard to listen to what you're saying because you talk with your hands and you don't, like, you da-da-da-da. And so this is kind of like a heads up. I promise I'm trying my best. I was debate varsity, so no. I am trying my best to talk, and I talk fine. It's just some people get annoyed, and I wanted to put like a heads up considering this is an online class, and you never really like, we don't like chit chat. I can't curse because this is a school video. Also, my camera is there, as you can see. Hopefully, I am doing this on my iPad, and it's tilted to the side. So, just because I don't want the YouTube video to look weird, because it just, but yeah. So this is going great. Later, I will be better. It's just it's super late right now. I do all my schoolwork at nighttime because I can just put my headphones in and focus. But yeah, so this is just a heads up that if I stutter or if I have any problems 12 hours from now when I am recording the actual video where I'm doing my makeup, that's why. And Part 1, Norse culture and Norse mythology. It was really interesting to do research on Norse culture and Norse mythology simply because there is so much and so little at the exact same time. It's a struggle to kind of figure out what exactly you're looking for, because at a very surface level, it seems like everything about Norse mythology is the exact same thing. You're reading the same thing, just in different words, website to website to website, and it was a struggle trying to find anything that could really relate to my topic, which was basically I'm talking about Norse culture, but it was very hard to find anything that actually delved into what it was and what it was about. A lot of it was just they looted and murdered people and went from town to town, and it wasn't until I found it's Ancient History Encyclopedia's definition, which I will put up on the screen. Their definition of what Norse culture was, and that's when I found a definition that I felt like would really, really help me with this topic, because it explains everything that I needed to know, and it got the job done. And that's very, very, very important. So, Norse culture. When you're doing research on it, it's very easy to see how oral storytelling got so popular. It's because they never really had a home base. A lot of Norse people didn't have a direct, like, a spot where they were like, this is home. They were very like, let's just stay on ships for a long period of time. And with that, it's very easy to see how, oral storytelling got so popular. They were very, like, they never really had a place to, like, sit down and write everything down. And if they did write things down, where were they going to put it? So it's very easy to understand how the culture is passed on orally, and as well as their religion. The Scandinavians practiced a form of paganism. I think that I'm 99.9% positive that Scandinavians are people who really were the main sources of paganism. I'm going to say that because I don't want my wording to be a little messed up. And they didn't practice religion in the way that they do today, in the way that we do today. Their form of worship was just completely different. Like many pagan and polytheistic religions, they worshipped much more of a lifestyle than it was a let's go to church and we worship there, and then maybe we'll decorate our house with some Jesus statues, but that's about it. No, pagan religions are very, very much more, this is a lifestyle. I will do things, I will give up things for my God or my goddess. I will do things for them. I will, you wake up and you're thinking about them, and you go to sleep and you're thinking about them, etc., etc., etc. Which in many ways you will see in modern day religion, which is because Catholic priests saw how Scandinavians practiced their religion, and they say, that's a good idea. I want that. Let me do that. But I will touch more on that topic in a minute. The concept of worship as we know it, today, like the way that we know religion and worship today, was introduced to Scandinavia through Christianity, which had already been kind of dominating most of Europe, and it was just about time that it was very, very, very difficult for Christianity to get to Scandinavia, because Scandinavians saw Christianity and they were just like, no, no thank you, and they really pushed it away. And so while Scandinavia was really ignoring a lot of Christianity and were just kind of pushing it to the side and ignoring it, Christianity was affecting majority of Europe. So at the time, around the time that Christianity and Scandinavia really started to interact with each other, Christianity had already flooded throughout all of Europe. So that's something that's very important to take note of. It's also important to take note that if the world was Greece, Scandinavians were Sparta. I'm pretty sure everybody's taken a Greek class knows the difference between Spartan and Athens, and the whole, everybody's seen the year 3000. Everybody's seen that. It's hard to talk about Norse culture and mythology because it wasn't really documented at all. I said this before, but it really was so difficult to find anything that the Norse culture was really written down, and most of their mythology, like most of their popular mythology, wasn't written down until the 13th century. So that should say a lot about how popular reading and writing was in the community. Written down by Scandinavians was altered by Christian monks and Christian peoples, or just the Christian religion in general, because a lot of Scandinavians would find ancient documents of proof and evidence of what life was like, and they would change it so that it fit a more Christian lifestyle. They really just lived their religion, and it's why it's so complicated and so difficult to find anything that seriously and that really puts detail into it. Like, we know Scandinavian culture from an outsider's point of view, but I don't think that we'll ever truly know what it was like to live every single day, especially when it comes to religion, and that's a bummer. Talk about Christianity and what makes Christianity so interesting in all of this. There's a lot about Christianity in history, and it's so hard. It was so hard when trying to do research on ancient Christianity and how it really affected Scandinavia and not find something that made Christianity look horrible, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to just talk about how Scandinavian Christianity started to hold hands, which sounds a lot more peaceful than it was. When talking about Christianity and history, it's super, super, super important to remember that human rights had not been invented yet. Period. They did not care what you were doing, who you were, as long did you not believe in what they believed in? Cool, you're the enemy. Just as long as we can get that out of the way. And it sucked to not be a Christian if you couldn't really defend yourself, because you might have had this idea, this whole religion in your head that you thought was super spanking cool, but the Christians came in and they were like, so that's really funny. So cute that you think that, but it's time to not play pretend anymore. Let me talk to you about my homeboy, Jesus. And that's pretty much the majority of the Middle Ages. There are also a lot of things from past history or otherwise dead religions that are very, very, very present in the modern era, like paganism for one point. I said this earlier, but it's very, very, very important to take note that when Christianity was doing their whole Crusades thing, and while they were really showing them whose religion was boss, Christianity picked up a lot of other religions on the way. And that's why if you really study Christianity under like a microscope, you'll notice a lot of things from other religions, which I think is very interesting and is a topic for another day. You might be wondering what I'm doing with my eyelids. I have no idea. But according to a participation trophy I got in 2nd grade, it doesn't matter what you do, just as long as you did something. So earlier, it's really important to know that throughout history, all cultures and everything kind of blends together at some point. There is no super strict religion, culture, language that does not blend or affect other cultures at some point. Like, it's impossible. It's impossible. You could look everywhere. And I think the closest in all of history, not just talking about Scandinavian Christianity for this one moment, and all throughout all of history, to find the one culture that was left unaffected for the longest time, I definitely believe it was China, because of the way that they were separated by mountains and sea, and how hard it was to get to that culture or to that society. That's why it was just left unaffected, because they were isolated for so long. But other cultures like North Africa and basically all of what we know of Europe as right now, was everybody could get to them. The trading routes were super poppin', and everybody was like, you guys want to try some of this religion? And it was just a share circle of diseases. It was a share circle of diseases, of culture, of language, of everything. And I think it's amazing to look at it like that. Not the disease part, but to see it more of a share circle. And I think that it's super cool. It does make things really confusing when you're trying to research religion, because you're like, oh, so Christianity did this, but they got this from this, and then that, oh, and it's just very, very frustrating. So to save yourself from the headache, I recommend not doing it. It's traditions and cultures changed a lot, and it's super important to take note of when things change, because Christianity not only changed a lot of cultures, but a lot of cultures changed Christianity. It is pretty obvious that today Christianity is not what it was a very long time ago. I am not a Christian, but I do know a lot about the Christian faith, mostly because I grew up I spent a lot of time in Utah, so I know a lot about Mormons. My family loves Jesus, and I grew up in the South, so I do know a lot about Christian faith, and I can say, hopefully, there are no longer Christians who believe that if your husband dies, you should marry his brother, that slavery should be allowed, and that gay people are horrible, because they're not. Gay people are people. I'm a person. We're living life. I'm not a slave anymore, so that's cool. And I think that because I love history very, very much. History is a subject that I hold very close to my heart. I know that this is for an English class, but just for a moment, I think that it's super important when doing research on history to have kind of a very much more relaxed bias, and to remember that human rights were not invented yet, and they still kind of aren't around now. That's not the point. A lot of people who, because they're Christian, like I said, did not like other religions, period. And so they decided to outlaw them. They basically said, you cannot be anything but Christian, and period. That's a bad way to look at things. I don't know why I said period. But they decided to outlaw paganism in I'm pretty sure all of Europe. They were like, this is witchcraft, this is evil, don't touch it. If you touch it, we get to kill you. But outlawing paganism, I will put up an excerpt, a credit, or the source I found where it detailed a little bit about this. outlawing paganism really did not do as they expected, because it turned out a lot of Catholic monks and priests saw how paganism was practiced and said, that's a good idea. I want whatever they're having. And that's how that happened. Or picking and choosing different parts of cultures and religions and societies is kind of expected when you grow as fast as a religion like Christianity did. There are so many things I could say about Christianity and organized religion, but we aren't here to talk about that. We aren't here to listen to that. No, we're here to focus on what, where, why, and how Christianity interacted with the world, and especially the Scandinavians. I said it once, I'll say it again. I have no idea what's going on with my eye makeup. I have no clue. Now that I no longer look like a tropical bird, this is for the best. The Christianization, I'm putting it in block letters so that I know I'm not crazy and that I'm just really struggling to say this, took place between the 8th and the 12th century in the realms of what is now Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, though historians do believe that there is proof/possibilities of Christianity already existing in Denmark in the 8th century. Scandinavians were already deemed Christian. Actual Christian beliefs took much longer to actually show up in these cultures. Victorious Christ is what's shown mostly in Germanic art, and so it's believed that missionaries would show Christ as a strong warrior-like figure instead of the more loving nature that he took on in like more southern Europe. And it's believed that the reason why they did this was to make him appeal much more to the warrior-like people. Instead of showing him as a loving and all-giving type of person, they instead showed him as a strong warrior who took down the devil, the Satan. I don't really know which is the right term to use in this context, but it makes a lot of sense when you really look at it. If you're going to sell something to somebody, why not only show the aspects that you know that they would like? Makes sense. To answer the question, how does this affect the storytelling of Beowulf? That's the process, and I look fine. I look great. Everything's going great. Now we get to talk about how we got here and why is this all important? Well, we already know why it's all important. Without Christianity and without Scandinavia, we wouldn't have this amazing tale of Beowulf. Also, I feel like we wouldn't have a lot of other things in life, but that's a whole nother story. It's really not hard to see how when you add in the mysterious and kind of hard to pin down culture of the Scandinavians with Christian monks who really just were like, why not make it Jesus? What's the point? Why is it not Jesus? It's really easy to see how some minor or major details could have been skipped out on the book and a lot of Scandinavian explanation. I believe that it's so much easier to really pick up on the underlying themes of Christianity in Beowulf. Before I read this little explanation snippet that I did put on the screen, or I hopefully put is still on the screen, I really was struggling with figuring out how I was really going to nail this topic on the major and minor details that I believe were skipped over when we were reading Beowulf the first time. Of course, we weren't supposed to be focused on if Christianity or how Christianity was affecting it, but I definitely believe that now that things have been pointed out, it's so much easier to see that this story was definitely altered by Christian monks to incorporate religion into literature. But I feel like something that we are definitely asking ourselves much more now than we were in the past was, is it really necessary? Do we really need to do this? And I would argue that it isn't. The unedited version of Beowulf could have had a completely different set of plot points and morals and completely different character arcs, different monsters, and who's truly to say what could have been. There was a bit. Unedited version of Beowulf could have had a completely different ending, a completely different set of monsters, a completely different character arcs, etc. But because it was edited by Christian monks, I don't believe that we'll ever truly know what the unedited version looked like, which is a bummer. It's super important to ask the question, what could have been, especially when you're reading, and especially in English and in literature. It's super important to ask what could have been, what could have happened, because I feel like a lot of stories focus so much on good versus evil, but I believe that this is because of the set of morals that we take on at a young age because of the society that we live in that has been affected by Christianity, which goes into a whole nother topic of conversation that is not going to be in this video because I'm 95% sure I've already passed a time limit. I still think it's an important question to ask, though. It's a common question that when you're doing anything history related, it's super common to ask yourself, what could have been. While doing this project, it was really interesting to do research on Scandinavia because I had never really done it in the past. When I'm doing, because I love history, I think I'm pretty sure I said this before if I didn't cut it out. I do love history, but a lot of the things that I focus on is on the 1900s, and doing research outside of the 1900s was really interesting, and I had a really fun time, doing my research, even though I couldn't find as much as I, would have, I couldn't find interesting tidbits. I really mostly found the same thing over and over again. It was also still really interesting to do research on that and do research on Christianity and how Christianity affected this certain part of a culture, because I believe that it's common knowledge that without Christianity we wouldn't be where we are today. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, that's personal choice, but I believe that this project definitely helped me open my eyes a little more to another side of history that I believe isn't talked about much. I also realized how interesting it is that this epic poem that is ancient literature is not only influenced probably multiple video games, but a very popular one is Skyrim, and multiple spin-offs. I'll say Lord of the Rings as definitely one of them. Tolkien really loved this story. I think it's very interesting that one of the most scholarly literatures, I am a professor on Beowulf. When I've heard it in passing, I kind of was like, oh, that sounds boring. What do you do for fun? Sit and read? But then realizing that it's actually a story about monsters and myths and legends made it so much more interesting to do research on this project. And I think that it's one of those don't judge a book by its cover, because at first I really thought that this was going to be the most boring assignment I've ever done. I was not looking forward to it. I was not interested whatsoever. But reading it, learning about the Scandinavian cultures and learning about Christianity and how it affected it really, honestly, has probably been my favorite English assignment I've done in a couple years, because it showed me, I got ahead of myself. I judged a book by its cover. I was like, this is going to be so boring. I don't want to do this. And then I actually sat down, read it, did the work, and did the research on it, and I realized that I enjoyed it a lot. This was really fun. I know that this video was kind of a hot mess, mostly because I found out in the middle of filming that I cannot talk while doing my makeup. Multitasking is not my strong suit, which is really weird because I have ADHD, so I should, but yeah, to kind of set an outro, I believe I did my conclusion already, but as an outro, I really, really enjoyed doing this project. I wish that I was able to turn it in faster. Honestly, knowing me, I've probably been sitting on this video for 2 days before I turn it in, but I loved it. So sappy and gross, but I think it was so interesting really being able to educate myself on what's been going on. Having to do this by myself was definitely a struggle, and I definitely chose a topic that was way too vague, but I did it, period. So yeah, that's my outro. Please don't fail me.